And welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us. Let's get started with everything that we have on the docket. All right, I'm back here with former prosecutor Melba, Pearson, and Law and Crime legal analyst Gene Rossi. Gene, I'm going to start with you. Okay, so why did he plead guilty to the manslaughter charge? What do you think it was about a new trial that maybe just didn't sit well with him?
Well, there's a lot of things. First off, when you have a retrial, both sides, it puts a lot of strain on resources and emotion. Number two, he could have been convicted in a retrial. Number three, by pleading guilty, he may get some leniency from the judge because he has accepted responsibility. And I don't know if they have sentencing guidelines in Tennessee, mandatory advisory. He could ask for a low end of the guideline range or a low end of the statutory range. I think it's a good deal for everybody, frankly. This was a manslaughter case. To me, it wasn't first-degree murder. It was a manslaughter case.
And do you think, Melba, do you think that's the case in the sense that even if he got back on the stand and told his story, he would have been convicted of involuntary manslaughter, that, as Gene says, it really does fit the elements of that crime?
Yeah, it does. And, I definitely have to agree with Gene that retrial is definitely stressful for everyone, but it gets stronger for the prosecution because they can adjust their case accordingly. Now, knowing what the defendant said on the stand, they can tweak the evidence to either support or rebut what he's saying. So, he definitely did the right thing by pleading guilty to voluntary manslaughter. The evidence seems to show either a second degree or a manslaughter because clearly this was not something that was premeditated. And from the location of where the victim was shot, he was shot in the chest, that is consistent with some sort of confrontation or argument. So that could go towards second degree murder, obviously like heat of passion type of situation. But definitely this plea is the best resolution for everyone. It doesn't put the witnesses through the inconvenience of having to come back and testify again. The next of kin, the victim's family, is able to have closure and move on. And the defendant himself is able to have closure and serve his sentence and move on with his life.
Gene, do you think, and it's arguable, that the victim in this case, Jimmy Shelton, was a highly unlikely person? He had quite the history, especially with the young lady that was involved in this case. And I wonder if you believe that argument that the jury might not have liked him or that he was not presented in the best light. Does that affect their analysis, even though it shouldn't?
Absolutely. And I participated in and supervised drug trafficking murders. And, a murder is a murder. It doesn't matter who the victim is. But when a drug dealer is killing another drug dealer, the jury looks at that a little differently. When this jury, it appears, looked at this Shelton guy, and he was not a nice person. He was abusing the stepdaughter. In fact, he should have been charged with criminal acts. So when he got killed, I got to tell you, in that jury room, I'll guarantee you one or two jurors were either saying it or thinking it. The victim got what he deserved. That is just the reality.
And let me ask you this, Melba. If we go back to what happened here, he said he's watching them from outside, and he believes in his mind that Jimmy Shelton is about to sexually assault his girlfriend, Miranda Goddard. And he's watching this. We hear the audio recording, and he comes in. Now, he doesn't come in guns blazing, but he does have a weapon with him, and that's how he tries to stop the crime from happening. It's at that point he says that Shelton then tries to attack him, and he opens fire. In your eyes, would he be justified under the law? Would he be found not guilty, not only of first degree, but also second degree murder and maybe involuntary manslaughter? The idea here that you have a situation where he might have been justified to use deadly force or not. In that particular case, he is not justified in opening fire.
So defense of others is something that would lead to a not guilty verdict. That is permissible under the law. If you feel either your life is in danger or you feel that someone else's life or safety is in danger, it is permissible to use force to be able to end that situation. The question is, was he reasonable in his belief that his girlfriend was about to be assaulted by the victim? That's the beginning, middle, and end of it. That's what the jury needs to figure out. And they clearly could not figure that out in this particular instance with the evidence that's presented. So that's why the plea was one possible resolution that worked well for everyone. Because again, if the state is able to find more evidence to bolster the fact that this was not a reasonable assumption or thought process on behalf of the defendant, and that, he just acted because he either didn't like the victim or there was some other issue at play that we're not aware of, then that would have led to a guilty verdict for the defendant for either second degree or for manslaughter.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to play some of Sean Foley when he went on the stand. It was something to watch, and you could argue that is what ultimately saved him from the first-degree murder conviction. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more.